It had been many years since he had stepped into the old house. Life had taken him far away, across oceans and cities, into a world of work, responsibilities, and routines that never left much room for nostalgia. But today, something pulled him back. Maybe it was a sudden wave of homesickness, or maybe he just needed to see the place that had shaped him when he was young. Whatever it was, he hadn't planned this trip long in advance. It was impulsive, yet felt right. The drive through the familiar streets brought a flood of memories. The trees lining the road seemed smaller somehow, or perhaps he had grown taller since those days. The corner store where he used to buy candy as a child was gone, replaced by a small cafe that looked modern and bright. Yet the air smelled the same faintly of wet earth and blooming flowers. Carrying a feeling of home he hadn't realized he had missed so much. When he turned into the driveway, his heart skipped a little. The house looked smaller from the outside than he remembered, but there was a comforting familiarity in the sight of the worn steps and the front porch with its chipped paint. He parked the car and paused, taking in the details, the swing in the yard that had squeaked when he pushed himself as a kid, the old oak tree whose branches stretched wide and strong, and the garden that had always been his mother's pride. Everything seemed unchanged, yet subtly different, as if the house had been waiting for him quietly, holding on to its secrets. As he opened the front door, the familiar scent of the home hit him instantly. It was a mixture of polished wood, faint spices, and the subtle scent of the furniture fabric that had been in the house for decades. He felt a wave of comfort wash over him, but it was quickly replaced by a small flicker of unease. The house seemed alive in a way he hadn't noticed before, filled with silent stories he was yet to uncover. In the living room, she was there. The maid who had been part of the household for as long as he could remember. She stood quietly, her hands folded neatly in front of her. Her face lit up with recognition, and for a moment the years melted away. She greeted him warmly, her voice soft but steady. "Welcome home," she said, and though it was simple, the words carried the weight of all the years she had been looking after the house, keeping everything in order. There was something in her expression, however, that made him pause. It wasn't distrust or fear, but a subtle hesitation. Her eyes held something unspoken, a quiet shadow that seemed to suggest she had known things he did not. Perhaps it was nothing. Perhaps it was everything. He didn't ask yet, unsure if he was ready to hear whatever truth she might hold over the next few hours. He wandered through the room slowly, touching the walls, opening drawers, and running his hands along the familiar furniture. Everything was in its place, yet some things were slightly altered. A chair was moved to the corner, a picture frame slightly askew, a small trinket left on the shelf that he didn't remember. Each small detail was like a whisper from the past, teasing him with memories that felt both sweet and strange. She moved around the house quietly, tidying here and there, her presence calming yet intriguing. She offered him tea and sat with him for a moment in the living room, asking gentle questions about his journey and his work. Her tone was warm, but there was an underlying tension, as if she were holding back something important. He noticed the subtle pauses when she answered certain questions about the family or events from his childhood. Her eyes seemed to flicker toward a corner, a drawer, or a photograph, but she quickly returned her attention to him with a practiced smile. He couldn't help but wonder what she was hiding. Was it a small secret, something trivial from the past, or was it something bigger, something that had shaped the family in ways he had never known? His curiosity was growing with every passing hour, a quiet, insistent pull that would not let him rest until he uncovered the truth. Despite the unease, there was comfort in her presence. She had been part of his life for so long that her quiet devotion was familiar and reassuring. She had seen him grow from a boy into the man he had become. Her work had always been silent and steady, unnoticed in the background, yet it had shaped the rhythm of the household. Now, as he sat in the room that held so many memories, he felt a deep appreciation for her, even as he sensed that she carried her own story, one she had never shared with anyone. As the evening approached, he wandered into the kitchen, noticing the subtle differences in the way things were arranged. The knives were in a different order, the spice jars neatly aligned in a way they hadn't been before. He realized that she had kept the house running perfectly, even in his absence. It was a testament to her dedication, but also a quiet reminder that there were things happening behind the scenes that he had never noticed. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm glow through the windows. He sat quietly for a moment, letting the memories wash over him, the laughter of his siblings, the aroma of dinners long past, the sound of his mother calling him for meals. And through it all, he felt the quiet presence of the maid, the one who had witnessed all of it and had never spoken of the secrets she carried. By the end of the day, he realized that this visit was more than just a return home. It was the beginning of a journey into the unseen parts of his family's life, parts that had been quietly safeguarded by someone he had always trusted. And deep down, he knew that the days ahead would uncover truths that could change the way he saw everything he thought he knew about home, family, and loyalty. As night fell and the house settled into silence, he felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Something was hidden in the corners, something that had been waiting for him all these years. He didn't know what it was yet, but he felt certain that the maid, with her quiet eyes and steady hands, held the key to a story he was only just beginning to understand. The next morning, he woke to the sound of birds outside his window and the faint aroma of something baking in the kitchen. The house had a peaceful rhythm, one that seemed to hum quietly, almost like it remembered the life it had held over the years. He dressed slowly, taking his time to walk through the hallways again, noticing details he had missed the previous day, the way sunlight hit the wooden floors, the small scratches and dents that told stories of childhood adventures and clumsy accidents. When he entered the kitchen, the maid was already there, quietly moving about, preparing breakfast with practiced ease. She smiled at him, her face warm but reserved, and offered him a seat at the table. "Good morning," she said softly. Her voice had a calmness that made the morning feel gentle, almost comforting. She placed a plate of food in front of him, simple yet inviting. And he realized that even small gestures like this had always made the house feel alive. As they ate, he tried to ask casual questions about the house, the family, and small events from the past, hoping to spark memories in conversation. She answered politely, but there were gaps in her stories, moments where she seemed to pause and choose her words carefully. When he asked about old friends, a relative who had passed away, or events he remembered from his childhood, she sometimes smiled and nodded, but her eyes seemed to flicker with a quiet hesitation. It was subtle, almost invisible, but he noticed it. A part of him felt that she was holding back something important, something she had chosen not to share all these years. Throughout the morning, he walked from room to room, observing small, unusual details that made him curious. Some drawers were locked, even though they had always been open when he was younger. A key hung on a hook in the hallway, worn and hidden among other keys, as if it had been deliberately kept out of sight. Old photographs were tucked behind frames or stacked carefully on shelves, as if she wanted them to remain unnoticed. Each discovery stirred a mix of excitement and unease. He wanted to ask questions, but something held him back. He was not sure if he was ready to uncover the truth. She moved around the house silently, her presence constant but unobtrusive. Every so often, he would catch her looking at him with a curious expression, as if she could read his thoughts. She was attentive and careful, making sure everything was in order, but he began to wonder why she seemed so cautious around certain areas of the house. There was a subtle tension in the way she spoke when he asked questions about family history. Sometimes her answers were vague, as if she were protecting memories that were not hers to share, or perhaps memories that she feared would hurt him if he knew them too soon. As the day passed, his curiosity grew stronger. He began to notice patterns in her behavior. Certain doors remained closed, certain rooms were tidied in ways he did not remember, and small objects seemed deliberately placed in corners or drawers. Each detail felt like a puzzle piece, pointing toward a story that had been carefully hidden. He began to realize that the house, the family, and even the maid herself had been part of a network of secrets, small but significant, that had gone unnoticed for years. At lunch, he tried to speak more openly, asking about old incidents, childhood memories, and family stories he had long forgotten. She answered politely, yet he could sense a boundary she would not cross. It was not that she was unwilling to share. It was as if she had made a promise to protect something, to keep it away from the world. Every word she spoke was measured, thoughtful, and deliberate, like she was balancing between honesty and silence. He felt respect for her, but also an increasing desire to know what she had been keeping from him. In the afternoon, he wandered into the study, a room he rarely entered as a child. It smelled faintly of old paper and polished wood. Books lined the shelves, and papers were stacked neatly on the desk. He noticed a small envelope peeking out from under a pile of files. Curious, he picked it up and saw that it contained handwritten notes, brief sentences, a few drawings, and dates. It was like a tiny window into the past, fragments of memories someone had preserved carefully. He realized that these notes were not meant to be discovered easily. Someone had hidden them intentionally, and the thought made his curiosity stronger. When he asked the maid about the envelope later, she only smiled softly and said, "Some things are best left for the right moment." Her answer was calm, yet it sent a shiver down his spine. It was clear that she had been guarding something important, something that had shaped the life of the family without anyone knowing. The way she moved through the house, the way she interacted with him, and the careful attention to small details, all of it suggested that she held a story that was hers alone to tell. And she had waited patiently for the right time. By evening, he found himself sitting quietly in the living room, reflecting on the day. He realized that the house was more than just walls and furniture. It was alive with memories, secrets, and moments carefully preserved. The maid's silence was not empty, it was deliberate. It was a protective shield, one that had kept the family safe in ways he could only guess. He felt a mixture of admiration, gratitude, and curiosity. She had been part of his life for so long, quietly shaping his world. And now he was beginning to understand that her role had been far more significant than he had ever realized. As the night approached, he walked to the window and looked out at the yard. The garden was calm, bathed in the soft glow of the evening sun. The swing hung still, the old oak tree cast long shadows, and the house seemed to breathe quietly around him. He realized that the coming days would not just be about visiting his childhood home, they would be about uncovering truths, understanding loyalty, and discovering stories that had been carefully hidden. He did not yet know what secrets lay within the walls or behind the doors the maid had never opened to him. But he felt certain that she held the key and that the moment to reveal it would come. Until then, he would observe, listen, and prepare himself for the truth, a truth that could change everything he thought he knew about his family. The house and the quiet woman who had watched over it all. As he went to bed that night, he felt a mix of anticipation and unease. The house was quiet, but the feeling of unseen stories lingered. He knew that each room, each drawer, and each photograph held a part of a puzzle he had not yet solved. And deep down, he understood that the maid's silence was not a barrier, but a promise that the story, when revealed, would matter more than he could imagine. The following morning, he woke with a sense of restlessness. The house felt quieter than before, almost as if it were waiting for him to notice something hidden. Memories of the previous day's small discoveries and the maid's careful behavior lingered in his mind. He had questions, many questions, and a growing sense that answers were closer than he thought. He wanted to know what had been kept from him all these years, the things the maid had never spoken about. Even when he had been a child. As he moved through the house, he found himself drawn to the attic. He had rarely gone there as a boy, always distracted by other adventures, toys, and games. But now, something about that quiet, dusty space called to him. He found the stairs leading up to it, slightly creaking under his weight, and paused at the top. The attic smelled of old wood, dust, and memories. Light filtered through a small window, casting long, soft shadows across the boxes, trunks, and forgotten belongings stacked neatly against the walls. He began to explore slowly, moving boxes and furniture aside. Each item seemed ordinary at first: old blankets, boxes of books, forgotten toys, but there was a sense that something extraordinary had been tucked away among them. His eyes caught a small chest in the corner, covered in a thin layer of dust. It was not large, but it seemed important, as if it had been waiting for him all this time. He knelt down and examined it. The chest was locked, its metal latch sturdy but worn. He realized that it must have been kept untouched for years, intentionally hidden, yet deliberately preserved. A wave of curiosity and anticipation ran through him. What could be inside? Old letters? Photographs? Something that would finally explain the careful, watchful behavior of the maid? He thought about asking her, but something told him this discovery was meant to be his alone. A secret left for him to find at the right time. He searched the attic for a key, noticing a small hook near the ceiling where several old keys hung. One of them looked like it belonged to the chest, rusted and aged, yet clearly used before. His hands trembled slightly as he inserted it into the lock. With a soft click, it opened, revealing the contents inside. The chest was filled with letters, photographs, and a few old journals. He picked up the letters first. They were tied carefully with faded ribbons, the handwriting familiar yet strange. Reading them, he realized they told stories of events he had never known. Some letters were written in secrecy, hinting at decisions made behind closed doors, actions that had protected the family from difficult truths. Each word seemed heavy with meaning, each sentence a small piece of a larger story he had never seen before. Next, he examined the photographs. Faces of people he recognized, yet captured in moments he had never witnessed, stared back at him. Some photos were of the house, the garden, and familiar rooms, but there were also images of people he didn't know, people who seemed connected to the family in ways that were unclear. It was as if the photographs were silent witnesses to stories carefully preserved, waiting for him to understand their meaning. Finally, he turned to the journals. They were old, the pages yellowed and delicate. As he flipped through them, he realized they belonged to someone who had been quietly watching over the family, documenting events and thoughts that had never been shared. The entries revealed struggles, moments of courage, and choices made to protect loved ones. Some passages hinted at mistakes, regrets, and secrets kept to maintain peace. It was clear now why the maid had never spoken of them. These were not just stories. They were carefully held truths, meant to shield the family from harm and heartbreak. Hours passed as he read, each page revealing more layers of the family he thought he knew. The attic became a world of discovery, a place where the past spoke in whispers through letters, photos, and journal entries. He felt a mix of emotions: surprise, curiosity, awe, and gratitude. The quiet dedication of the maid, her vigilance and care, had preserved these stories for the day he would be ready to understand them. He paused occasionally, looking around the attic, realizing that this space had been more than just storage. It had been a sanctuary, a place to keep memories safe, a place to hold secrets until the right time. The realization deepened his respect for the maid. She had carried these stories silently, ensuring that the family remained protected, even when it meant holding the truth away from those she cared about the most. As the afternoon light faded, he carefully replaced the items in the chest, ensuring everything was exactly as it had been. The experience left him with a new understanding of the house, the family, and the quiet, unwavering presence of the maid. He realized that the secret she guarded was not just a matter of hidden facts. It was a reflection of her loyalty, her love, and her careful judgment. She had chosen silence not out of fear, but out of devotion. When he descended the attic stairs, the maid was in the hallway, moving quietly as always. She noticed his expression. Something had changed in him, a mixture of realization and understanding. He did not speak immediately. He knew the moment of conversation would come, but for now, he simply nodded to her, a silent acknowledgement of her role in keeping the family safe. She returned the gesture, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. As if she knew the time for revelation was drawing near, the house felt different now, alive with stories he had begun to uncover. Every room, every object, seemed to hold meaning he had never fully appreciated. The quiet patience of the maid had allowed him to discover the chest at his own pace, giving him the chance to understand the depth of her actions and the weight of the secrets she had carried for so long. That evening, as he sat in the living room with the fading light streaming through the windows, he reflected on the discoveries of the day. The chest in the attic was more than a collection of letters and photographs. It was a bridge to the past, a window into the choices and sacrifices that had shaped his family without him ever knowing. He realized that secrets, when held with care and love, could protect as much as they concealed, and that the maid had spent a lifetime ensuring that protection. For the first time, he began to see her not just as the quiet presence in the house, but as a keeper of history, a guardian of truth, and a protector of the family. He felt a deep sense of respect and gratitude mixed with a quiet anticipation for what would come next. He knew that eventually, the maid would speak of what she had kept hidden, and when she did, it would be a moment of revelation and understanding that could change everything he thought he knew about home and family. As night fell, he looked out at the garden, the swings swaying gently in the breeze, the old oak tree standing tall. The house was quiet, yet it felt alive with the stories he had begun to uncover. The chest in the attic, the letters, photographs, and journals, they were only the beginning. The true story, the full truth that the maid had carried silently for so long, was waiting. And he realized that the journey of discovery had only just begun. The next morning, he woke with a sense of determination. The attic had revealed more than he expected, and the letters, photographs, and journals were weighing on his mind. Questions had piled up in the past days, and the pull to understand the truth had grown stronger. He knew he could not wait any longer. He needed to speak with the maid. He wanted to know why she had never shared these stories, why she had protected the family in silence, and what had compelled her to carry these secrets for so long. He found her in the kitchen, quietly preparing breakfast as she always did. The sunlight poured through the window, illuminating the warmth of her movements. She greeted him softly, her calm presence somehow grounding him. Today, though, he felt he needed more than pleasantries. He needed honesty, clarity, and answers. He took a deep breath, trying to find the right words without startling her. "May I ask you something?" He began carefully, keeping his tone gentle. She nodded, a slight tension in her posture, but no words. "About the attic, the chest, the letters and journals. I saw them. I read some of the pages. I think it's time I understand why these things were kept from me, from the family. Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" For a moment, she remained silent. He could see the conflict in her eyes, the weight of years spent guarding truth she had been entrusted with. Her hands paused in motion, and she looked down, choosing her words carefully. "I wanted to," she said softly, her voice steady yet tinged with emotion. "But some things can hurt people more than they help. I promised myself I would only speak when the time was right, when the person could understand and carry the truth without it causing harm." He listened intently, leaning forward slightly. Her explanation was calm, yet he could feel the depth of her conviction. She had made this choice not out of fear, but out of love and protection. Each secret she held was not a burden for herself alone. It was a shield for the family, a barrier against pain that she had carefully maintained over the years. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, feeling a mix of relief and awe. "I can see now that you weren't hiding things to deceive us. You were protecting us." She nodded, her expression softening. "Exactly. Some truths can change how people see their world, their family. I had to make sure it was safe to share, that it wouldn't cause harm or distrust. You were away, the family was busy, and I had to decide what was best at each moment." She began to speak in more detail, her voice growing more confident as she shared what had been hidden for so long. She spoke of difficult choices made quietly, actions taken to prevent misunderstandings, and sacrifices made to protect family members. Some stories were about mistakes, regrets, and missed opportunities. Others were about courage, loyalty, and acts of kindness that had gone unnoticed. With each word, he felt a growing appreciation for the quiet work she had done, the life she had dedicated to the family, and the care she had taken to preserve their well-being. As she spoke, he realized how much of his understanding of the house and the family had been limited by the silence surrounding these truths. The events in the attic, the chest, the letters, the photographs were not just historical records. They were proof of a life lived in devotion, careful attention, and constant protection. He began to see the maid not just as a caretaker, but as a guardian of memories, a keeper of truths, and a silent hero whose work had shaped the family in ways no one else could. The conversation lasted for hours. She did not speak all at once. Instead, she revealed the stories gradually, allowing him to process each truth before moving to the next. He asked questions, sometimes hesitant, sometimes curious, and she answered honestly, never forcing explanations, always leaving room for reflection. The patience and wisdom in her words made him realize how much thought had gone into every decision she had made over the years. At one point, she paused and looked at him directly. I knew one day you would come back and ask. I just hoped it would be sooner rather than later. Some truths can be heavy, but they are important. They remind us that love, care, and loyalty often happen quietly, without recognition. Her words struck him deeply. He felt a rush of gratitude and respect, understanding for the first time the true magnitude of her dedication. By evening, he felt a mix of emotions: relief, understanding, admiration, and a quiet awe. The weight of the secrets had been lifted, replaced by clarity and appreciation. He realized that the maid's actions had preserved not just the family's stability, but also its dignity. The stories she shared were not just history. They were lessons in loyalty, compassion, and quiet courage. They sat together in the living room as the sun set, casting warm shadows across the walls. Silence fell between them, but it was a comfortable silence, one filled with mutual respect and understanding. He thought about the past days, the attic, the chest, and the stories that had been hidden away. He thought about how the maid had spent her life serving the family, not seeking recognition, but quietly ensuring that love and trust remained intact. For the first time, he felt a deep sense of connection not just with the family's past, but with the woman who had shaped it in ways he had never realized. Her courage had been quiet, her loyalty steadfast, and her choices deliberate. He understood now that the maid had not only protected the family, she had shaped its story, guided it through unseen challenges, and ensured that the truth would be revealed at the right time. As the night deepened, he reflected on everything he had learned. The secrets, once mysterious and hidden, now felt like a bridge to understanding, a way to see the love, care, and effort that had gone into the family's life for decades. The maid had been the silent keeper of these stories, and her wisdom in holding back until the right moment was something he would never forget. Before going to bed, he walked quietly to the attic once more, not to uncover more secrets, but to honor what he had found. The chest was closed, the letters and journals carefully preserved, but the meaning behind them was clear. The maid's silence had been a gift, and her trust in him to understand the truth was something he vowed to respect. He realized that some stories are meant to be revealed gradually, and the impact of the truth can be far greater when shared with care and love. As he finally lay down to sleep, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. The journey of discovery had not only revealed the hidden stories of his family, but had also shown him the depth of human kindness, loyalty, and courage. He knew that from this moment on, his understanding of home, family, and the people who shape our lives quietly would never be the same. The maid's story was now part of his own, and he felt honored to finally know the truth she had so carefully guarded. The following morning, the house felt different. It was not the walls, the furniture, or the garden that had changed. It was the feeling inside him. After the long conversations, the attic discoveries, and the revelations from the maid, he saw the home in a new light. Every corner seemed to carry stories of love, care, and quiet sacrifice. He realized that the past days had been more than just a visit. They had been a journey into the heart of his family. Guided by someone whose patience and loyalty had been remarkable, he walked through the hallways slowly, touching the walls, noticing the little things he had once overlooked. A small scratch on the floor, a mark on the door, the way the sunlight fell through the windows, all of it told stories. He thought about how much the maid had done to preserve the home, to maintain its comfort and warmth, and to protect the family from secrets that might have caused pain. Her devotion was quiet but powerful, shaping the household in ways no one had ever acknowledged. Breakfast that morning was calm, filled with gentle conversation. The maid moved around with her usual grace, but there was a softness in her eyes now, a sense of relief and trust that had been absent before. He realized that the silence she had kept for so many years was not emptiness, it was a shield, a promise, and an act of courage. She had carried the weight of the family's hidden truths and ensured that those truths were revealed only when they could be understood and appreciated. As they talked, he found himself reflecting on the lessons he had learned. Loyalty, he realized, did not always need recognition. Love, he understood, could manifest in quiet, unseen ways. Courage, he saw, was sometimes about holding back, waiting for the right moment to reveal what was hidden. These truths were not written in the letters or journals, they were lived through the actions of the maid. In the care she had given, the secrets she had kept, and the patience she had shown over the years, he spent the morning revisiting the attic one last time. He opened the chest carefully, running his fingers over the letters, photographs, and journals. Each item seemed to speak to him in a new way now. He no longer approached them with curiosity alone, he approached them with understanding and respect. The stories within them were no longer just hidden memories. They were reminders of the human capacity for devotion, sacrifice, and love. Returning to the living room, he sat quietly, thinking about everything he had discovered. The maid joined him briefly, bringing a small tray of tea, and they shared a moment of comfortable silence. Words were not necessary. Both understood that something profound had shifted in the household. The trust, respect, and understanding between them were stronger than ever. He felt a deep gratitude for her presence, not only in his life, but in the life of the family she had quietly shaped for decades. In the afternoon, he decided to walk around the garden. The old oak tree stood tall, its branches stretching wide, as if embracing the home with their strength and longevity. The swing hung quietly, swaying gently in the breeze. He thought about the past, the events he had missed, and the ways the maid had protected the family from challenges they might not even have understood. Every leaf, every flower seemed to carry the memory of her care, her efforts, and her unseen sacrifices. As the sun began to set, he reflected on the entire journey. What had started as a simple return home had turned into a profound experience of learning, understanding, and emotional connection. The secrets once hidden in the attic, the letters, photographs, and journals, were now part of his understanding of the world. But more importantly, he understood the human story behind them, the story of someone who had quietly shaped lives without expectation of recognition. Simply out of love and responsibility. He realized that the home itself was a testament to this dedication. The warmth of the rooms, the odor of the furniture, the calm rhythm of daily life, all of it had been nurtured by the maid's unwavering commitment. She had been the invisible thread holding the family together, ensuring that love and trust endured even when challenges arose. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that her story, though hidden for so long, was the most important part of the home he had returned to. That evening, he sat by the window, watching the garden in the fading light. Memories of his childhood mingled with the discoveries of the past days, creating a deep sense of appreciation for the home, the family, and the people who had shaped both. He realized that life often involves quiet acts of courage and love that go unnoticed, and that sometimes understanding comes only when one is ready to see it. The maid had waited patiently for this moment, and he now felt honored to witness the truth she had so carefully guarded before going to bed. He took a final walk through the rooms. Each one felt alive, filled with history, love, and the care of someone who had dedicated her life to others. He understood that this experience had changed him, not just in his understanding of the house, but in his appreciation for the quiet, powerful acts of loyalty and devotion that exist in every home. He realized that gratitude and respect are sometimes the most important ways to honor such acts, and that acknowledging them can deepen connections in ways nothing else can. As he lay down that night, he reflected on everything he had learned, the importance of patience, the strength of loyalty, and the quiet courage of those who protect others without expectation of recognition. He felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the stories he had uncovered, but for the person who had carried them so carefully and revealed them at the right time. He understood now that the maid's life had been a story of devotion and care, and that his return home had given him the chance to fully appreciate it. The house was quiet, yet it felt alive in a new way. He felt connected to the past, the present, and the people who had shaped it. The maid's presence, once unnoticed, now seemed like the heartbeat of the home. He knew that this experience would stay with him forever, a reminder of the power of love, loyalty, and courage in their quietest forms, and as he finally closed his eyes, he felt peace. The secrets had been revealed, understanding had been gained, and gratitude had filled the space between past and present. The maid had waited for the right moment, and in doing so, had taught him one of the most important lessons of life, that true care is often silent, patience is powerful, and the stories we carry quietly can shape lives in ways no one may ever know until the right time comes to share them.